Steelers Nation. Welcome back to SteelersFix Daily. Here we go. It's week 2, and the Seattle Seahawks are coming into Acrisure Stadium to face your Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, last week against the Jets, we pulled out a nail-biter, 34-32, but as every Steelers fan knows, it wasn't exactly clean football. There's a lot to like and a lot to fix, and that's what makes this matchup against Seattle so fascinating. The story everyone's talking about is Broderick Jones, the left tackle, former first-round pick, a guy with all the tools, but last week he flat out struggled. 3 sacks, 4 pressures, according to Pro Football Focus. And to his credit, he didn't run from it. He didn't blame anyone else. He stood there in front of reporters and said, "Just a bad game, honestly." That honesty matters. Pittsburgh respects that. We're a city built on accountability, whether it's the mills, the fields, or the football field. When a player owns it, fans might grumble, but they'll give him another shot, and Jones is going to get plenty of them. This is also a career-defining year for him. Omar Khan and the front office will have to decide next spring if they're picking up his 5th-year option. That's not just a number on paper. That's the team saying, "We believe you're our franchise left tackle." If he doesn't clean it up, if he has too many of these rough outings, the Steelers could be forced into a tough decision. But here's the good news. He's got Aaron Rodgers behind him, and Rodgers isn't the type to throw his linemen under the bus. Rodgers took 4 sacks against the Jets, and instead of pointing fingers, he said, "I don't think I was moving that well. I think I ran into at least 1 or 2 sacks myself." That's leadership. That's veteran presence. That's Rodgers saying, "I'll take some of this on my shoulders." And when you've got a young tackle like Jones, hearing that from a future Hall of Famer, that builds confidence. Rodgers even said he likes Brod's energy, likes his positivity, and has confidence in him to protect his blind side. And honestly, Steelers fans, we've been through this before. Remember when Alejandro Villanueva had some rough games early? People thought he might not stick. He turned into a Pro Bowler. Remember Max Starks back in the mid-2000s? Same thing, up and down, inconsistent, fans pulling their hair out. But when the chips were down, he delivered in Super Bowls. Sometimes tackles need time. Sometimes they need the right coach, the right quarterback, the right locker room around them. Broderick Jones is in that spot right now. Now let's talk DK Metcalf, because he's another headline heading into this game. Facing the Seahawks, his former team, everybody wants to spin it into a revenge narrative, but Metcalf, he shut that down quick. "Y'all gonna make it a big deal," he said, "but I'm not." And you know what? That's classic DK. He's never been a talker. He lets his play do the talking. Last week he had 83 yards against the Jets, most of it after the catch. He's physical, he's fast, and if Seattle's secondary is banged up, and let's be real, Julian Love and Devin Witherspoon missing practice is a big red flag, Metcalf could have a monster day. And here's where it gets interesting. The Seahawks know Metcalf better than anyone. They practiced against him for years. They know his tendencies, his releases, the way he likes to set up corners. But the flip side is also true. DK knows them. He knows where their weaknesses are. He knows how to manipulate their leverage. And if Rodgers has even a half-second more time in the pocket this week, don't be surprised if we see a deep shot early to test that secondary. Switching gears. The Steelers made a sneaky addition this week, signing veteran safety Jabrill Peppers. Now this one caught some people by surprise, because Peppers was cut late by the Patriots, and there were a couple of teams sniffing around. But once the Steelers called, he said it was hard to say no. He's in his 9th season, but somehow he's never played in a postseason game. Think about that. A guy with that much talent, that much versatility, still waiting for his shot in January. And now he's with Tomlin, with Rodgers, with Heyward, Watt, Ramsey, and company. This is his best chance yet. Tomlin praised him as a football player first, positional player second. That's Tomlin speak for, I can use him anywhere. Safety, nickel, even special teams. With Deshaun Elliott sidelined by that knee injury, Peppers could see the field fast. And Steelers fans, think about the depth now. Juan Thornhill at free safety, Peppers or Chuck Clark at strong safety, and flexibility to roll guys around. That's what you want in today's NFL, chess pieces. And let's not forget Cam Heyward. He's finally got his contract cleaned up. He admitted he's sleeping better now that it's done. The man's been the emotional anchor of this defense for over a decade, and when he's comfortable, he's dangerous. The deal added playoff incentives, $3.2 million on the line. But he brushed off the idea that it adds motivation. He said, "The goal isn't just to win a playoff game, it's win a Super Bowl." That's Cam Heyward in a nutshell, always thinking big picture. And Steelers Nation eats that up, because that's our culture. It's not about wildcard rounds or consolation prizes. It's about Lombardis. Period. So here we are, the Seahawks rolling in, the Steelers looking to start 2-0, and a roster that's equal parts veteran leadership and young guys with something to prove. That's segment 1, Steelers fans. Next, we're diving into the injury report, coaching pressers, and how Arthur Smith and Teryl Austin plan to attack Seattle. Plus, I'll hit some Steelers Seahawks history that'll take you back a couple decades. Stick around. All right, Steelers Nation, let's shift gears and dig into the Week 2 injury picture. Because as Tomlin always says, availability is the best ability. Here's where we stand. Joey Porter Jr. dealing with that hamstring. That's a tough one. Anytime you talk hamstrings with a corner, it makes fans nervous. Those injuries can linger, and Porter's length and speed are what make him dangerous. Without him, the secondary looks very different. Deshaun Elliott also sidelined with a knee. He's not on IR, which is encouraging, but it means somebody has to step up now. Enter Chuck Clark and Jabrill Peppers. Clark's steady, he's been around, he's smart, he doesn't get lost in coverage. Peppers is new to the scheme, but he's a playmaker. Steelers fans, don't be surprised if Tomlin rotates them to see who's most comfortable against Seattle's passing game. Defensive tackle. Derek Harmon is also dealing with a knee issue. That one matters because Seattle loves to run between the tackles. They've got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet ready to pound it. If the middle of our line is thin, that puts pressure on Cam Heyward, Keanu Benton, and even rookie Yahya Black to hold firm. And Cam Heyward himself got a vet rest day earlier in the week. That doesn't worry me. That's just the coaching staff making sure his legs are fresh. Same thing with TJ Watt. You don't overthink it. Those guys are warriors, and they'll be ready when the lights come on Sunday. Now let's look at Seattle. Their secondary's beat up. Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon, both missing practice time. That's huge. Witherspoon's one of their best young players, physical, competitive, a guy who wants to press you and get in your face. If he's not 100%, that's where Rodgers and Metcalf can feast. Think about it, Steelers fans. Rodgers in rhythm, DK Metcalf against backup corners, Calvin Austin working the other side. That's a recipe for fireworks. And if Arthur Smith really wants to open things up, he can scheme quick throws to Gainwell or Calvin Austin III to test Seattle's tackling in space. Speaking of Arthur Smith, let's talk about what we heard from him this week. He admitted flat out that the run game was average at best against the Jets. That's coach speak for, we weren't good enough. The Steelers only scratched out short gains until late in the game, when they adjusted. Smith said the Jets' front played them differently than expected, and it took time to adjust. That honesty is refreshing. He didn't panic. He didn't sugarcoat. He just said, we've got to keep working. And he's right. The Steelers aren't going to survive long-term if Rodgers has to drop back 45 times a game. They need balance. They need 4 yards on first down. They need to stay out of third and longs. Now here's where history comes in. Steelers fans remember the glory days when the run game set the tone. Jerome Bettis, Willie Parker, Rashard Mendenhall. Pick your era. Pittsburgh always had that back who could grind clock, chew up defenses, and wear teams down. We haven't seen that consistently in recent years. We've had flashes, we've had bursts, but not that identity. Arthur Smith wants that back. He wants this team to be physical again. And with Rodgers at quarterback, you don't need to run for 180 yards. You just need to run well enough to keep defenses honest. Now let's go defense. Teryl Austin said it best. It was a lot of things. That was his assessment of why the run defense fell apart against the Jets. And he's not wrong. Sometimes it was missed fits. Sometimes it was linebackers not filling gaps. Sometimes it was defensive linemen getting blown off the ball. That's the truth. It wasn't just one issue. It was several. And that's why this game against Seattle is such a test. Kenneth Walker isn't shy about lowering his shoulder. Zach Charbonnet? That guy runs angry. If you don't tackle low and wrap up, he'll bounce off and keep going. Pittsburgh has to swarm. Guys like Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, Patrick Queen, they need to be downhill, decisive, physical. And let's not forget the last time Pittsburgh really dominated Seattle. Go back to Super Bowl 40, February 2006. Bill Cowher, Jerome Bettis, Heyward, Troy Polamalu, Joey Porter. That was a defense that imposed its will. That was a running game that delivered when it mattered. And that was a moment Steelers Nation will never forget. Why bring it up now? Because that same standard is expected every time we play Seattle. Fans don't want excuses. They want results. They want to see a defense that can choke out the run, pressure the quarterback, and flip the game with a splash play. Now back to the present. One rookie I think could play a sneaky role? Yahya Black. Austin said they love his versatility but want to bring him along slowly. That tells me he's showing promise in practice. Don't be surprised if he gets more snaps this week, especially if Harmon isn't ready. Black might not fill up the stat sheet yet, but he can eat space, tie up blockers, and free up Watt and Heyward to make plays. And that's the formula. When Watt is clean off the edge, when Heyward can shoot gaps, when linebackers can run free, this defense hums. But it all starts with stopping the run. So what does this mean for Sunday? It means the Steelers can't wait until halftime to adjust. They need to come out prepared for Seattle's physical style. They need to set the tone early. If they give up 100 yards rushing in the first half, this game could slip away. But if they plug gaps, win first downs, and get Rodgers in favorable situations, Acrisure is going to be rocking. That's segment 2, Steelers fans. Up next, we'll dive into matchups to watch, betting odds, and why this game means more than just week 2. We'll even talk about how it stacks up in the AFC North race. Stick with me. All right, Steelers Nation, time to bring this thing home. Segment 3, the deep dive. We're going to talk history, division context, matchups, betting lines, and of course, a prediction to lock it all in. Let's start with history, because whenever the Steelers and Seahawks meet, there's one game that sits on the throne. Super Bowl 40, February 2006, Detroit. The Steelers winning their 5th Lombardi, Jerome Bettis retiring on top, Bill Cowher finally getting his ring. That game wasn't just a win, it was a cultural moment. Heyward catching the trick play touchdown from Antwan Randall L. Willie Parker ripping off the longest run in Super Bowl history at the time. Joey Porter barking all week, then delivering. Troy Polamalu flying around. Steelers Nation taking over Ford Field and drowning out Seattle fans. That was the day Pittsburgh cemented itself as the ultimate traveling fan base. And you better believe that vibe still lingers whenever we see Seattle on the schedule. Fast forward. 2011. Remember that home opener? Steelers blanked Seattle 24-0. Ben Roethlisberger carving them up, defense smothering. That was a statement. Then 2015. A wild one in Seattle. Russell Wilson threw for 345 yards and 5 touchdowns. The Steelers put up 538 yards of offense, but lost 39-30. That game still stings. Richard Sherman picking off Big Ben, Marcus Wheaton going crazy for 201 yards, but it not being enough. Point is, Steelers-Seahawks games always carry something extra. It's never just another Sunday. And this week, with Rodgers in black and gold for the first time in this matchup, the drama writes itself. Now let's look at the AFC North context, because this game doesn't exist in a vacuum. The Ravens are tough. They always are. They've got Lamar, they've got a defense that wants to blitz your soul, and they're the reigning division champs. The Browns? Say what you want, but they've built a nasty defensive front, and they've got Joe Flacco back. The Bengals? Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow. If he's healthy, they're always dangerous. So why does week 2 matter? Because stacking wins early is everything. If the Steelers start 2-0, that keeps them even with Baltimore, or ahead of Cincinnati. It keeps pressure on Cleveland. It gives them margin for error later in the season when injuries hit, or the schedule tightens. And let's be honest, this division is brutal. You can't afford to drop home games. You can't afford to get sloppy against non-division opponents. Every win counts, and this one counts double because it's against an NFC team people expect you to beat. Matchups to watch. Number 1, Broderick Jones versus Leonard Williams. That's the battle that could decide the game. If Jones holds his own, Rodgers has time. If Jones struggles, we're in for another scramble fest. Number 2, DK Metcalf versus Seattle's secondary. This is personal, whether he admits it or not. If Witherspoon doesn't play, or if he's hobbled, Metcalf could feast. If Seattle doubles him, that opens doors for George Pickens. Number 3, Steelers run defense versus Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. If Pittsburgh gives up 150 on the ground again, buckle up. But if Heyward, Benton, and the linebackers clog gaps, Seattle has to throw into Watt, Porter, if healthy, and Minka. Advantage Steelers. Number 4, Rodgers versus Seattle's blitz looks. They're going to test him. He's 41 years old, still sharp, but if they can force him to move off his spot, it gets interesting. Rodgers admitted last week he wasn't moving well enough. This is where he proves he can still escape, reset, and deliver. Now let's get into the betting lines. Current spread? Steelers favored by 3 at home. That's basically Vegas saying, we think these teams are even on a neutral field. Moneyline sits around minus 165 for Pittsburgh, plus 145 for Seattle. Over-under around 47.5. So how do we see it? Steelers minus 3, I like it. At home, Rodgers locked in, Seattle's secondary beat up. It won't be a blowout, but I think Pittsburgh covers. The total at 47.5, this one's tricky. On one hand, both defenses have weaknesses. On the other, both teams want to run the ball and control tempo. If the Steelers clamp down on Walker and Charbonnet, the game leans under. If not, it could shoot past 50. Personally, I lean over. I think both sides make enough explosive plays. Props to watch, minus DK Metcalf anytime touchdown scorer. You know Rodgers is going to look for him. Rodgers over 1.5 deep completions. If the pocket holds, he's taking shots. Minus Steelers defense to score. It's always in play with Watt, Minka, and those linebackers flying around. Now let's talk big picture. This isn't just about starting 2-0. It's about proving the Steelers' formula works. Rodgers was brought here for games like this. Veteran leadership, confidence under fire, the ability to elevate the guys around him. Broderick Jones is under the microscope, and Rodgers is the one steadying hand that can keep him afloat. Metcalf was brought here to be a game changer, to tilt the field, to take advantage when defenses are thin. This week, he gets that chance against his old squad. Cam Heyward? He's the heart and soul. With his deal squared away, he can focus entirely on wrecking offensive lines. Jalen Ramsey? He's the eraser. If Seattle tests deep shots, Ramsey has to be ready to flip momentum. And let's not forget the linebackers. Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb. They've got to fly around, tackle, and be violent. Because Seattle is going to try to bully us. And the Steelers don't get bullied in their own house. So here's the prediction. Steelers 27, Seahawks 23. Rodgers throws for 275 and 2 scores. Metcalf gets his revenge quietly with a touchdown and 90 yards. Austin makes a clutch third down grab late. Watt gets a sack and a forced fumble. Heyward eats up blockers. Ramsey seals it with a late pick. Pittsburgh moves to 2-0. The North gets nervous. And Steelers Nation goes to bed Sunday night knowing the black and gold are right where they need to be. That's the preview, that's the breakdown, that's the betting angle. Thanks for tuning in to SteelersFix Daily. Make sure you follow on all platforms, smash that like, and check out the full article on SteelersFix.com. Until next time, this is SteelersFix signing off. Here we go.